I believe, and I think your audience should believe, that real estate investing is, buying and holding something for 5 to 10 years out.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Real Estate Investors Club podcast. I'm here today with Jared Henderson, who is a full-time real estate investor, and he's going to tell us a little bit about how he did it, his journey, and his business model. So, Jared, by way of introduction, can you tell me about your journey through life that's led you to be on my show with me today?
Thanks, Terry. Yes, I can. I hopefully have enough time, but I'll try to condense it so your audience can get a grasp. Born and raised in Montreal. Moved around a little bit after university, but basically started working out at my father's manufacturing company. After a few years, got sort of bored of doing the 9 to 5 thing. Always had a sales background and did enjoy that aspect of work because I'm sort of a hunter, need to go out there and create something that wasn't created and build business. That's what I like to do. And, I ventured with that back and forth, but I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad back in 2005, right after I started traveling after university. And I always had in the back of my head the 9 to 5 thing regarding, escalating a corporate ladder. It just wasn't there for me. And I wanted to build equity in something on my own. And so basically, I started buying condos in 2012 in Niagara Falls, so a full decade ago. And to make a long story short, I held on to them, refinanced them a few years after acquiring them, and started diving into other markets after educating myself about the growth in the Golden Horseshoe in Hamilton, St. Catharines, and primarily purchasing single-family duplexes, adding value and refinancing them. And now my portfolio mainly lies in Peterborough, where I duplex bungalows and refinance them both with my own money and my partners. And I've grown my business that way. And now that actually starting January of this year, I'm now a full-time real estate investor. So what that means is, in addition to buying and holding real estate with my own funds as well as partners, I flip homes and I wholesale them in order to generate day-to-day income. I call it my grocery money. This is what it's paying for my mortgage, my food, vacations, all that kind of stuff. So I've got the investment component for the long-term equity build, and flipping and wholesaling for grocery money, as I put it.
Okay, so some active income sprinkled in there.
Exactly.
All right. There's like a bunch of things that I want to pull on there, so let me try to not be too scattered. So the first thing is, okay, you're a kid from Montreal. Sounds like you grew up in Quebec. How do you end up investing in Ontario? Like, because that's kind of, and especially like, I think you said Hamilton. Like, that's not like Gatineau. Like, it's not like Ottawa, right? Or Hawkesbury, which is right on the border. Like, how does St. Catharines? It was St. Catharines. How does St. Catharines even like get on your radar?
Yeah, so I never was part of the entire networking, social media world prior to, let's say, 5 years ago. So back in 2012, I was living in Ottawa, actually for a few years, close enough to Montreal, but still, I invested 4 hours away, so the question's still relevant. Spoke with a friend of a friend who had started investing in real estate. But the idea was, it was very hands-off, right? So you buy into this condominiumization project, basically someone who owns an apartment building, and they're separating each unit into condos and going through that process and looking for investors like myself to purchase them and hold them. And so that's what I did, because I felt it was the easiest way to get into real estate without having to be completely hands-on and look for the tenant and qualify for them. And qualify them in order to generate, a real actual real estate investment. And so I bought 2 of these condos, and after seeing that they had appreciated after a few years, starting 2015, let's say 3 years after, I started researching why, how there's basically an influx of both immigration and growth in population around the Golden Horseshoe. And that's what led me to Hamilton and St. Catharines. And why I continue to invest around the GTA today is it's pure appreciation. It's pure population growth. It's nothing more than that. I wish I could invest more around Montreal, and I probably could, but the truth is, you could probably invest almost anywhere. And I really started to build a network of contractors, property managers in my markets. So it's just easier for me to grow within the markets that I'm already established, and then to branch out into to multiple other markets, or even to be local. There's a lot of advantages to what I do in Ontario.
And so do you still live in Ottawa?
No, I live in Montreal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was just there for a few years from 2009 to 13. Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
So, and I have another question for you. So the type of properties you said that you initially scaled your business with, so single family duplex, what comes into my mind is, gosh, those are all residential mortgages. How does Jared have enough income to grow a portfolio of residential mortgages? Because you're stuck with the loan to value thing in your salary. So how did you crack that little conundrum?
Yeah, great question. So I believe I got about 6 or 7 until the bank said, time out, you've got too much. And then I started working with joint ventures. So basically, I took up coaching and started to attract money based on the activities that I was doing, showed prospective investors how I basically recycled their money, put it into a home, made the improvements and got it out, and holding the asset without almost any money in, and sometimes profit after. So it's really a fascinating formula if done correctly. Now, a lot of things need to go your way. The renovations need to go well. You need to have a strong after repair value, but with the right, with basically me delegating the financing to a partner, you can have as many properties as your partners can qualify for. So that was a way of expanding. I also start to work with B lenders and private lending, but basically branched out after 5 to 7 properties and buying them personally.
Yeah, that's it. I think everybody eventually gets tapped out either on the capital front or on the lending front, and the question is just which one of those two is going to come first, especially like in the residential space, right? If you go into multifamily, like at least there you can, I don't want to say they would give my dog a mortgage, but like they're not too worried about your personal revenues because they're looking at the property. But on the residential side, they're really looking at your revenue. So like everybody runs into that problem.
That's right.
So if we want to get really specific, when we had a little conversation off camera just before we started the interview, you said you invest today in Peterborough. Now, you're the first person that I've spoken to who invests in Peterborough, actually in small town Ontario. I'm sure there's lots of people who do it. As this is a Montreal show, I just don't get a chance to have those conversations that much. So tell me about that. Tell me about Peterborough. Tell me about a typical deal that you would have done, let's say, in the last, I don't know. I want to say like ever since the interest rates started creeping upwards, because I think that's going to be the most representative. And if you can throw some numbers in there, that would be really awesome.
Sure. Yeah. And by the way, I think it's weird that I invest in Peterborough, but to make the long story short, I was looking in Oshawa originally meaning 2016, and I just saw no cash flow. I ran the numbers, and there was just no cash flow. The expenses would be matching the revenue or slightly above if you actually factored in vacancy, maintenance expenses, and all these items that tend to be left off the pro forma from many agents. But anyway, my agent the next day said, "Hey, Peterborough is it's 30 minutes away, but it's the next market." And then I bought 2 there, and then I basically grew my portfolio starting 2017 in Peterborough. I bought 2 houses and then turned them into student rentals. But in terms of a recent deal, I bought a place on single family home at 757 3rd Avenue for $450,000. I put in $110,000 to create a legal basement suite. So what that means is that it's not just a regular suite, a regular apartment. It's fire, it's protected by the fire code. It's got basically 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and it's acknowledged as a separate unit where I'm allowed to have different tenants. Normally, if you have a granny suite, sometimes characterized in these realtor listings, it just means that it's a bi-generational house that you can have other family members live in, but everyone needs to be part of the same lease. So it's just not the same thing at all. And it recently appraised for $750,000. So basically, if you've got a lender at an 80% loan to value, that deal allowed me to pull out all the down payment of the property and all the renovation costs, as well as a little bit of profit after, to return to my equity partner. And it's just an example of the types of deals that I do. So when I'm looking for these bungalows, they're going to be high ceilings, lots of windows in the basement, and basically dated, something that I can add a lot of value to, and I'm really getting a deal. So for example, I bought it for $450. At the time, places like that were selling for $525 type thing. So a good discount off the ticket price in order to create that gap, that equity when I refinance it as a final product.
Mm-hmm. And so just tell me, the refinance was how long ago? I'm just trying to get a sense for what the interest rate would have been.
It would have been about 6 months ago. So basically maybe 1/3 on the way up of all these increases.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were still able to pull out the kind of capital that you wanted to get at that time.
Yeah. Now I think banks will only refinance maybe 75% or 70%, just because the market has softened since and they want to take less risk. But I got one in, let's say, under the buzzer. So very happy, because you obviously feel great when you can return all the equity, all the capital your partner invested, plus return some profit on the side. And so basically we're holding the asset with $0 in, and it's just a home run of a deal. That's not always the case. Sometimes you're leaving some money in the deal, and it doesn't make it a bad investment. I believe, and I think your audience should believe, that real estate investing is, buying and holding something for 5 to 10 years out. That's when you start to realize the massive equity gains that it can provide.
So, okay, that was going to be my next question: is if you guys held the property, what do your rents look like, just that we can get an idea of the cash flow?
Yeah, we're getting 2,300 upstairs, and we're going to be able to increase our rents downstairs from 1,750 to 2,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good rents.
So that's why I'm in Ontario, because we don't see those rents in Quebec.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or a similar type of property.
Yeah.
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 The rent to value is very strong in Ontario.
And what would your monthly cash flow be on that?
So it was about $600, $500 to $600 a month prior to the rates increasing so much, and now we're a little above water. Let's say $100 or $200.
Okay, so you have a variable rate mortgage then.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we should have, and my fault, I guess. Well, it depends on your perspective, but ideally, looking back, this was an opportunity where right after refinancing, I should have refinanced at a fixed rate. But we didn't know that they would increase this fast, this high. So, I'm not the only one. I'm definitely not perfect. And I don't attempt to try to call the bottom of the market, the top of the market, anything like that. So if I could go back and just lock it in as a fixed the second we refinance it, that would be great, and lock in that cash flow. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, so I mean, hindsight's 2020, and I think we all on our journey end up making moves that we wish we hadn't. But so what? It's part of the learning process. Have you really been listening to the episode, or has your monkey mind been taking you off in one direction or another? Our mental habits can be our biggest assets or our biggest liabilities as we pursue certain goals. For me, the biggest performance gains have always come from training my mind. In my book, Mindful Landlord, I talk about how you can train your mind and how you can apply some of these strategies to your journey in the real estate field. The book is available on Amazon and also on its website, mindfullandlord.com.
Now I'll stop evangelizing for the power of mental training and let you get back to the show.
I wonder. So I just thank you also for being very transparent and authentic about the numbers and about the fact that not everything always goes exactly according to plan. Which kind of leads me to my next question. So, I think if you read people's social media feeds and like see a lot of stuff that's out there in the real estate world, there's this idea that people want to project kind of overnight success and make it seem like everything happened in a way that's effortless and there's, not real stress. But I think if you get into people's journeys and how things really started, like we all took a lifestyle hit. And, for me, it was living in a really not great part of town for a long time. And, doing a lot of the management like out of a room in my apartment back in the day. And so I'm curious for you, like what was the lifestyle hit you took?
Yeah, well, I definitely aimed at reducing my rent and car expenses. Those are the largest expenses in life, let's say, that you need to incur. But when I think about it, I've been able to grow a reasonably sized portfolio because I invested every last dollar that I got from refinancing the previous property. So what I mean by that is, let's say that deal that I just mentioned, where I'm basically receiving all of my invested funds back from the property. Okay, so I've done this with partners' money, and I've done it with my own, where um, I I myself put down the 20%, put in $100,000 to $120,000 to do the basement suite, get it refinanced, and then collect a great check of, let's say, $200,000, $250,000. It's very tempting to take 50 or 100 of that and blow it on a nice car or some nice vacations or whatever you want to do. The truth is that in order to grow something significant, you have to keep reinvesting your money into the business without increasing your lifestyle. You can increase it a little bit, but when, as you mentioned, you see people posting pics of Lamborghinis or sports cars or mansions or this or that, it's likely just a show, and it's not representative of how you grow the wealth. Now, it's definitely a possibility for someone who's been at it for 10 years, grinding 7 days a week, and has built something, or even less. That's possible as well. But the truth is, in order to really see that hockey stick exponential growth, you're investing every last dollar. You're not using your own money. You're borrowing privately. You're sourcing joint venture partners, and I'll say you're getting a bit lucky as well. The market's treating you well, because if you see what's happening right now, prices are softening. No one wants to buy anything. Interest rates are increasing. Well, if that had happened 5 years ago, I wouldn't have what I have, and nor would anyone else. So there is a little bit of luck as well. And I think it's important for your audience to know that anyone who's considering starting in real estate investing to understand that you need to continue reinvesting your profits into your business in order to grow something significant. Mm-hmm. It's just that simple. There's no other way around it. You buy a car, then the liability of that expense will drag down your ability, it'll drag down your credit, it'll drag down your ability to grow your business, and you'll probably sell it at a loss instead of a property.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. At the risk of belaboring the point, what other sorts of sacrifices have you made? Because that's financially, like I think you're absolutely right. I think the fact of seeing most of the dollars generated by your activities as something that needs to be plugged back into the business and not go out and on expensive vacations or whatever else. Like I can definitely relate to that. But what about some of the other, like time wise or education wise or like growth wise? Like what did you have to do to get the knowledge and have the time to put this together?
Yeah. So, Terrie, it's incredibly important to be passionate and really love what you do to make this all work. If that's what I'm doing, I mean, but it is true, because it can be all consuming. To get back to to your direct question, in addition to working a 9 to 5, I was also working before and after the working days and on weekends in order to grow the portfolio, in order to attend these seminars, meetups, and think about me. I'm living in Montreal and I'm going to Ontario to meet people. Thankfully, actually, COVID helped catalyze a lot of those relationships and connections, simply because by virtue of what we're doing right now, it's no different than what I've been doing the last couple of years. And I actually worked harder during COVID, probably harder than I ever did in my entire life, because it kind of felt like Groundhog Day. Every day was the same day, but that's just get up and work because I can't do much else. So it actually made it easier for me. But to get back to regular life, if that's what today is, the sacrifices that need to be made are working, let's say, a 9 to 5 job, or like generating T4 income, so you can have the credit to buy places personally, as well as put in those hours after work and on weekends in order to create the network that you need to keep growing your business. And what I will also mention on a personal level is that it's incredibly important that your significant other is on board with what you're doing, because there is no way around it. You're not going to find any excuses. How do I put it? You won't be able to come up with another excuse of why you need to do this, why you need to do that. They need to be on board with your vision, and if they want to support that by working with you, that even better. But the truth is, they need to be supportive of your vision and what you're trying to do, because the hours that are needed are inescapable. And that's why I say you need to love it and you need to be on board. That would be my best advice to someone who's looking to get into real estate or has just started and wants to continue growing. It just doesn't happen without it, right?
Yeah, I think that's really a great advice. And you kind of stole the thunder from one of my last questions, which was, what in the industry should we be talking about that maybe we don't talk about? I know you mentioned off camera initially that it's making sure that your partner is on board. Would you have anything else to kind of say on that topic, or maybe some advice of like, how do you get that buy-in? I don't know if you have kids or not, but like, once you have a partner, it's one thing. If it's just the two of you looking after each other, that's one thing. But when you have a family, and like, it means that someone's got to, look after the kids or be home at night while you're out networking. Like, how do you sell that? How do you get them on board?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes through your performance and what you're actually bringing to the table. So if you draw the connection with your partner or your supporting network and say, hey, look, I'm doing this and this is the final result, but it's like the tip of the iceberg that you see. No one sees all the work that went into that beautiful refinance or that great flipped property. You had to make 10, 20 offers to get that one that worked. You needed to go through a couple of contractors in order to get the one that finally, you either gel with, or they came in at the right price and they were a strong referral, but you had to fire the previous contractor. No one wants to talk about those aspects because, well, I won't say no one. I'll put it this way. If you're trying to sell someone on real estate, you're going to see the fancy car, the lifestyle that real estate is supposed to give you. If you talk to a real investor about how they grew, they're going to tell you about all the hours while either maintaining or reducing their lifestyle in order to grow their business. And it's really that simple. If not, it's a show or inherited money or some other story going on. But I like to think that it's important for investors to be very authentic with their experience. And I definitely don't hesitate to show people the pains that I've been through. I recently had a couple of kids vandalize one of my properties, and look, that's no fun, but you have insurance, and all these challenges make you a better investor in the long term. And I used to think those were just cheesy words that someone would say years ago, but the truth is, if you're going to get anywhere in this business, bad things are going to happen, and you're going to have to deal with them, and you're going to have to know that they're going to happen again. but it doesn't matter, because if your vision is strong and you're able to hold income property for a long period of time, you will receive the benefits, which will outweigh all those obstacles along the way.
Yeah, I think I think you're completely right. And as you were telling that story, I was just thinking, when I early on in my career, I got caught with a variable rate mortgage. I think it was my first property, like in 2006. I bought my first property, and I took a variable rate. I was a student at the time. My dad co-signed the mortgage, and I got the first letter in the bank of the rate increase. I got the second letter of the bank for the rate increase, and at that point, I was earning like 30K. Like I really could not handle that myself. And then I fixed my mortgage at like, the 1 percentage point above. And then I looked in the mirror and I was like, never again the variable rate mortgage.
Yeah.
And so like I learned that lesson back in 2006 from a mistake, exactly like everybody today who got caught out with a variable rate mortgage. And so now I fix everything all the time, even though I know it's going to be a little bit more. And now I'm happy about that. Right. But I think you're right when you say that, like, we all go through these sort of expensive learning experiences at a certain point, and then the fact is to be able to kind of bounce back from that, hold on to your properties or hold on to your investments despite that, and just not make the same mistake the next time around.
Exactly. Yeah, and just so you know, a funny story. When I started, after my first couple of properties in Niagara Falls, I bought a couple in Hamilton, and they were single family, and the rates were good. So I was sure that these tenants were going to be great, and I was going to hold the property for at least 5 years. And that didn't happen. So I actually had a different experience where instead of signing up for a 5-year fixed, I said I'm never going to do fixed again, because I had 2 5-year fixed mortgages. And looking back, the penalty was minimal. It was like $6,000 per property. So comparing that to issues that come up now, and it's not a very big deal, but it's interesting. We basically use the experience we have to influence our decisions. I do understand why you'd want to be on fixed, and of course you look like a genius now with what's gone on and the rapid increased rates. And I never saw it happening, for sure. So it's interesting. If there's one thing I've learned as well, is that when you started really seeing this peak in January, February, I sold one as a flip. Next time that happens again, I'm going to sell a few. I'm not just selling one, just to take some money off the table. Even if the prices keep going up, you can sleep well saying, hey, well, when you're receiving 25 offers, no conditions, there's it's what they call irrational exuberance, I guess, usually in the stock market, or just this greed that's sort of taken over, and people will overpay. So yeah, it's fun. We have these experiences and we adjust. That's what learning is, right?
Yeah, it's the fear of missing out phase, right? When you look at like the real estate cycle, like at the very top, it's when people are afraid, if I don't buy now, I'll never be able to buy. And like I think we were certainly consumed with that for about a year.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Jared, we're coming up to the end of our time today. I want to thank you so much for this interview. I really appreciate, your authenticity and your willingness to just be honest about stuff. That's something I try to do on the show, and it's always fun when the guest is on board with having those kind of conversations. Maybe you want to just tell our audience where they can reach out to you if they want to learn more, if they want to have a chat with you. What's the best way to get in touch?
Sure, yeah. What I'll do is my Instagram handle is JaredH55, so that's spelled JaredH55, and my email is jjhenderson555@gmail.com if they're not there on Instagram, and that's usually the best way of getting a hold of me. Happy to have conversations with your audience regarding investing in real estate, what their plans are, what they're looking to do. I had a lot of people help me at the beginning phase of what to do with this, if that, and I know what it's like. So I don't know everything, but I've learned a lot along the way in the last 10 years, and happy to share my knowledge with your audience.
Thank you, Jared. Very generous. We're going to drop those links in the show notes. And
Fantastic.
thank you again for spending this time with me.
Thank you, Terrie.